As we are waiting for people to come in, feel free to introduce yourself, say hi. This is the Libraries Build Business monthly community discussion. These are informal peer-to-peer conversations. We have Zach Huber here today from the Toledo Lucas County Public Library to share with us the updates from their program. We'll be talking about ecosystem building, but we'll also have time for announcements and updates. So feel free to say hi. Oh, there's Rachel. Hey, Rachel.
Hi, can you hear me?
There you are. Hey.
Sorry.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Oh, Jennifer, congratulations. Sorry, I have a mask on. Everybody here is sick.
Oh, no.
So, yeah. Jennifer, congratulations on what a great award for your work with the cannabis businesses. That's awesome. Sorry.
Oh, thank you.
I was
Appreciate
so excited.
it.
I was like, I know her.
Yes. Thanks. I appreciate that.
Jennifer, tell us about your award.
Oh, it's an award for the city, award from the city of Rochester for innovation pertaining to my work with the cannabis industry.
Awesome. Congrats.
Thanks.
Alexandria, love your earrings. Those are great.
Thank you. Actually, we have a makerspace. I have 3D printed them.
Oh, even better. That's awesome.
Mhm.
Yes, for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Alexandria. I'm the business and nonprofit librarian in New Haven, Connecticut, at our public library.
Megan, my colleague Lindsay, she says she's followed the link and it says that she's waiting for the host to let her in. Is there maybe a different link that she should use?
I think so. I sent it out again right
Okay.
before the meeting. So see if she can go from my most recent
Okay.
update, because yes, I think there was a problem.
Okay.
I was worried about that. Thank you.
All right, she's trying it.
Sorry.
I wonder if that's what happened too. Here comes a few more people. Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Sorry if you had trouble finding us. We might have had some technical difficulties. We are just going around and sharing any updates or introductions, saying hi. If anybody else has anything to say while we're before we officially get started, feel free. You can type in the chat, you can unmute. These are informal peer-to-peer conversations, so you're welcome at any point to chime in.
Well, Megan and I presented at the conference in Tehran earlier this week. So lots of technical issues for that one, but yeah. But we did it.
We did it.
You were
We
in Tehran?
I was going to clarify that. We weren't in Tehran.
Oh, okay.
We were here. We had some very awkward time difference. It's like 12 and a half hours or something like that. So when my presentation was supposed to be at 9 or something, which is like 5:30 their time. So it's not 12 and a half, it's 9.5, whatever it is, but it's
Yeah.
something and a half hours.
Yeah, it was a lot,
It's a lot.
a lot of hours.
So just a little update from Wyoming. 3 years ago, it's been 3 years, Megan. 3 years ago in April, I got to meet, or maybe it was in May before we actually got to meet. I got to meet Megan, and she started me on this crazy journey and kept cheering me on. And now we have placed 19 business stations in 22. Yeah, I don't remember. 19 business stations, 19 podcasting stations, and other equipment throughout 23 counties in Wyoming. So we almost have every county covered. I got 3 to go.
That's awesome. Congratulations. 3 to go. Anybody else? I see Janet's joined us and Roslyn. How's it going?
Moving right along. I made a presentation to the Medford business license staff this month. And since then, I have gotten every clueless wannabe entrepreneur showing up on my doorstep. It's great.
Getting the word out.
Yep.
Jennifer says hello from Salt Lake City Public. Hello. Okay, well, I have a couple of announcements. First of all, if you haven't, I think most of you are aware of our Slack, but if you haven't found our Slack channel, I'm going to drop that link in the chat. The Slack is just a peer-to-peer space for people to share resources or ask questions. I post announcements there, Jim posts announcements there about things going on at ALA or about the upcoming meetings. So if you haven't joined already, please do, and feel free to spread that to other colleagues. And please use it and engage. We try to ask questions or share resources there, but we need everyone to do that as well. So feel free, don't be shy. Yeah, join the Slack. What else? The LibLearnX, which is our ALA January conference, and the PLA conference, both registrations are open. So if you're thinking about either of those, you can now register for them. LibLearnX is in Baltimore this January, and PLA is in Columbus in March or April, I think. I will be presenting at PLA about the Libraries Build Business Communications Toolkit. I will be at both conferences, so if anyone is planning to go, if we have a good critical mass of people attending those conferences, I could try to help organize a meetup. It would be great to get together with some of our small business colleagues. We did that at Annual last year and the year before, and it was a lot of fun. So definitely let me know if you're thinking about attending conferences. And if we don't have enough for like a group to hang out, still let me know. We can get coffee or something. So just starting to keep that in mind as you're making your plans. And anybody else with announcements or updates?
I have one, but I can go last if anyone has anything else to say. All right. Seeing none, just a quick introduction. I don't talk often during these meetings. My name is Jim Takeshita. I'm a public policy associate with the ALA's PPA office. And so over the last few months in the Slack group, I've been making announcements asking for information about some of your programs and about some of the people that you may interact with. And one of the goals for Libraries Build Business going forward is to start collecting stories of success among libraries, among small business owners, and as well as looking for public figures either in local or state government or among people who work for economic development organizations that you guys might partner with. And we're exploring different opportunities and different organizations that Libraries Build Business and ALA could work with. And it would be very beneficial to have up-to-date information and new stories on how libraries are impacting the entrepreneur space in their communities and how they're supporting small businesses. And so if you think you have something, then, please let me know. Please let us know, as it could really go a long way towards helping us make our cases to other economic development organizations and potentially to, government organizations as well. So just a little heads up, if you've been getting notifications from me for the about once a week for the past few months, that's why. So yeah, thank you everybody for your patience.
Anybody else have anything to share? Oh, Amada's here. Of course, I should have recognized that. Hey, Amada, good to see you. Okay, well, I'm going to turn the floor over to Zach. Zach and Lindsay are here representing Toledo Lucas County Library. They are going to share an update with us about their business program. We're be talking about ecosystem building. Zach and other colleagues, I don't think, not Lindsay, but Zach and others wrote one of the chapters in our Libraries That Build Business book. So there's, if you want to see where Toledo Lucas County started from, check that out in the book. Okay,
Yeah.
and Zach, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks. Yeah, I think we're chapter 25. Not that I'm counting. I actually have that up on a slide because if you do want to learn kind of the beginnings of what I'm talking about, I'll talk a little bit about it, but you can always reference that. And Lindsay's joining me. She is still in week 6, I think. So we're not going to force her to present on any of this, but we're glad that she's here with us, and we're glad that she was added to the team. But let me get my screen all set up and we will take it away. Okay, so I don't expect everyone to be familiar with our library. So here is just a quick synopsis of who we are. So we are Northwest Ohio. Toledo is actually just kind of along the border between Michigan and Ohio. So if you aren't familiar, we're not one of the big 3 C's as we call it, but we're proud to be up where we are. They fought a war over us to get Toledo. So we were worth it. But we have 20 branch locations, and that on top of that, we also have a mobile services crew, and we have to tout this as much as possible. But this year we were the recipient of the 2023 National Medal through the Institute of Museum and Library Services. So I think we'll keep harping on that one as long as we can. And then if you just want to know what kind of size library we are, the county that we serve is about 430,000 people. Of course, in Ohio, we allow anyone who lives or works in the state of Ohio to get a library card, pretty much any library in the state. So we do have additional card holders across the state, but that's our primary service population. So I'm going to talk about today the ecosystem and some of the challenges that we've been facing, especially recently. And to get into that, I think I have to explain how we operate. And I know every community is different, and something like this may or may not work in your community, but I do feel like it's a little special in how formal our business ecosystem is, and we're really glad that the library is part of that. So we launched this thing called the Business Growth Collaborative in 2019, and we are not the convening organization of the collaborative. There is another nonprofit organization called Jumpstart that brought us all together as the Business Growth Collaborative, and that actually started over in the Cleveland area. What's nice that what we have going on here, though, is the Cleveland area does not seem to include their public library as part of the ecosystem ecosystem that they built over there. So we're still even a little bit different from how that one operates. But Jumpstart got all of these groups together, most of them being either nonprofits or chambers of commerce or other organizations that are state run, and said, hey, we have all of these different services and we are all operating in our own bubbles, and it would be best served if we could come together and form a structure so that we're not duplicating services and that we can share resources and even share customers and clients between each other. So we signed an MOU with, I think, 13 other organizations in 2019, and that's actually when I started here at the library. So I actually kind of got the tail end of the startup portion. I think I was in one of the first 1 or 2 meetings that we have, and that MOU, I'll break apart some of the pieces here, but that really got us all to sit down and form this organization. And what's nice, I think a library could be the convener in a different community, but because Jumpstart is this, actually, I think they're technically a venture capital organization, they come with some funding that the various agencies in the collaborative are able to apply for cyclically, maybe annually or biannually, I can't remember, but the library actually does not participate in that. For various reasons. One is we don't want to share our customer data with the organization, so we have elected not to go after the grant data, so that we're more of just a kind of outside partner on that piece. But we meet monthly to discuss updates within each organization, if there are programs going on or new initiatives, or if one of the organizations or some partners within there is receiving grant funding, they'll update us on how that particular program is going. And there is a shared customer relationship management database that's going on. And so that's the piece that the library, we're not necessarily putting our customer information in that, but that shared database is still very helpful for us because it allows that warm handoff between organizations. And we actually get, I think, a fair number of the referrals because they're typically not ready for some of the services our partners offer until they maybe, do a little bit of research on their business or get a business plan together. So a lot of times they end up coming over to us first, or maybe the first referral within that, and then we can check the database and see who they've met with, or maybe learn a little bit more about their business before we get to actually meet with them, and that kind of primes us for a really good conversation. And like I mentioned, there is funding that happens. So it's a shared pool. I think the funding pool is about $20,000 annually. And then all of the organizations can create proposals, and they share their proposals with the group to make sure that there's no overlap. We do partner with one of the groups called Assets, and we are not, like I said, we're not getting the money. They're getting the funds and paying for some program materials for us to do a program as a part of that partnership. But I know some of the other programs that are going on are some mentorships, and that's happening between 3 of the partners. I can't remember off the top of my head what some of the other ones are that have been in the past, because it's a new funding cycle right now. But I think that was one of the motivating factors for everyone to finally sit down and do this, because there was some funding on the table. Through Jumpstart, they are also hiring a facilitator to lead the meetings. That way, even though Jumpstart is convening, there's this neutral party who is helping us through the meetings and the referral processes. And that was really important early on to have that neutral person lead us through those things. And then each organization, as part of being a member of this formalized ecosystem, was able to then identify what their strength is within the ecosystem, so that we all know who's the best referral for one particular piece. Is this one, really good for mentorship, or can they help with business plans? Is a good potential candidate to talk for access to capital. So we all identified our lanes within that. The library being reference and referral. And our primary strength is working with early stage businesses with business plans and research. So like I said, that we're often one of the first stops for a referral. And then here are our kind of goals that we outlined within that memorandum of understanding that we all signed. So the overall focus of the ecosystem was to improve and streamline the services provided to small business owners and minority and low to moderate income entrepreneurs in the greater Toledo area. So that does include Lucas County. And you know, this wasn't in the MOU, but I have over time heard that there is a bit of a focus on some of the agricultural businesses, so that those typically, you know, those aren't going to be in Toledo because we're not an agricultural community, but they are coming from the region. And then another goal is to ensure that the majority of services that are being provided to all small businesses and entrepreneurs have this emphasis of African American and Hispanic and Latinx business owners or members of other minority races and ethnic groups. And that also can include immigrants and refugees, but in general, also low to moderate income people. Now, from our perspective here at the library, we don't really have to work toward that. That's who our customer base is anyway. I can tell you probably the majority of people we see are usually women-owned businesses or people of color. So this is already within our wheelhouse, and we didn't have to necessarily market anything any specific way. And then the last goal was to remove barriers that are preventing equitable economic growth, because I think because we were so disparate before this, if you didn't know about one of these organizations, you wouldn't have known about their services or how to access them. So now if you are working with any one of us, you are open to all of the services that we all offer. So it really removed that specific barrier. I think that this model has really helped us also just to get to know one another as agencies and as individuals. So it's a bit more of a warm handoff between organizations. These are all of the current partners that we have in the BGC, the Business Growth Collaborative, and that link at the bottom is the website that has a little bit of an explanation on all of these. I think a lot of these will look familiar to a number of you organizations that you might have equivalencies for, or the exact same organization. But to highlight a few that might be new, Assets Toledo, there's a few different assets programs across the country, but they have weekly programs. So they sign up for basically this class, they become alumni, they're graduates of assets, but that really is this in-depth weekly class to learn how to do a business plan. SIFT is our partner, Center for Innovative Food Technology, for food-related businesses, and we get a lot of food trucks and business startups in the food area, so they're a great referral point, but they also help with manufacturing and recipes and scaling all of that up. I think the Cincinnati group that presented a few months ago, they talked about ECDI, so their access to capital, Jumpstart's on there. LISC is a community development corporation, so they're another access to capital. Going down the list, who else you might not be familiar with? Then we have Women of Toledo. They're a primary partner for a lot of mentorship, but they work with some of the other chambers on some of the grant funders. And then we have these additional outer band members who aren't necessarily the ones meeting us every month, but that includes SCORE and some of our other area organizations like Mercy Health. They have an innovations group, and so there's a ProMedica hospital system. So they're not necessarily in it with us, but we can also make referrals to them as well. But all of that was how this was set up and how we've been working together for a number of years. But there have been challenges over the time that we've been working the last 4 years, and I'm going to share some of those because not everything is always sunshine and rainbows. We all have different priorities within our organizations. So we're working through some of these particular issues. Some of them we've come up with solutions, but some of these we're still trying to figure out what we're going to do going forward anyway. So if you've got questions about what we've decided to do, we might not have an answer quite yet, but we have learned that it's always best to establish a framework for taking on new partners. And the BGC did actually create a framework in place for adding new members, which was actually just simply a majority vote of those who are already in the group. But we've really struggled with when to enact that. We've all been kind of wishy-washy, like, oh, should we add this person or this group? And we're like, oh, I don't know. And we never actually voted in a new partner. So having that really healthy framework for when to add new potential partners is really healthy. And that just goes for any library partnership. So the first factors to consider in adding potential partners, those are kind of from our perspective as a library. So really identifying how that's going to benefit your customer or patron or client or whatever you refer them as, and then determining if that partner provides services that fills a gap in library services and vice versa. We're really lucky that pretty much all of our partners do fill a gap because while we're great at helping with someone navigate the information on a business plan, we're not maybe the best partners to talk about access to capital, or we can't really offer mentorship or one-on-one services in that capacity. So all of the people that come in the Business Growth Collaborative already do that. And then it's always important to establish how you can keep accountability within your network. And these monthly meetings that we have really do keep that accountability, because then we're able to say, okay, I passed this person off via email. Can I get an update? How has that been going? Did they actually reach out to you? Did they set up an appointment? Or should I reach back out and make sure that they've been propped up? And then you can agree on how information is shared between partners. So like I mentioned, we are benefiting from the CRM tool, but we're not necessarily putting information in it. We have a few partners like that. The state organizations like the Small Business Development Center are just like that. They are happy to be a part of this, but they also can't share information on the people that they have coming to them first. Additionally, service gaps should really be evaluated regularly, and plans should be made to meet the needs. And that's kind of a weakness that we're working through right now. So that last bullet point are some of the gaps that we've identified: human resources, marketing, accounting, and of course, having a physical space for all of this. No one so far has really identified human resources as an expertise area for them. Marketing is hard because that's typically done for cost. So like what can be done for free within this ecosystem has been a challenge. And the same with accounting. That's just another service that people typically have to pay for. So we're still working through that piece on how we might fill those gaps with some of our partners, as well as finding a way to have a physical representation of this. When we started the ecosystem, it was intentional that it wasn't public facing, but we've learned that over time, it's become more important for building trust with our community that there be some sort of public facing piece of this, and that has been more of a priority over time. It's also important to create an onboarding framework, and that has really come apparent as there's been turnover with the various agencies that are involved with this group. So we are still trying to work through this one. We've had a strangely high number of new people coming on board in the last 4 or 5 months. So we don't have this in place at this point. But I recommend, based off of lessons learned, that as new people come aboard, that you really have some way of onboarding them into the collaborative, because this turnover with agencies has really led to a decrease in focus on the original mission and a decrease in referrals, but also kind of an increase in confusion and mismatch in referrals. So for example, the library, we have some great resources for nonprofits and finding grants, but we've been trying to educate our partners over time that those are really for nonprofits, and we don't have a lot of great resources for for-profits finding grants. So we might get an email that says, hey, here's Zach, he's really good at helping find grants for your small business, when that really isn't the case. And so things like that can happen, and that mismatch can lead to really negativity on the part of the person being referred, because then they're just like, oh, well, I thought I was going to meet with you for this, and that's not necessarily the case, and now I don't really know what to do. We always try to take in any referral and explain, how we can help, and maybe who might be the partner who is best suited, or why not that we can't help them with that particular issue. But there's also been a decrease in attendance from partners. And we actually had in our MOU that 80% of meetings should be attended by a representative of your organization. And because the people who are now coming on board were not part of the signing of that MOU, we haven't really revisited it and onboarded them, I'm not sure that we all are on the same page on that piece. So if you have something like this in your community, or you're interested in creating a collaborative like this, I think it's very important to make sure that you have some sort of onboarding for those new people, and not new organizations. These are organizations that are already part of it. They just are new employees at those organizations. So how have we as a library kind of stepped in on some of these gaps that have come aboard? So Lindsay's here. So we hired a new additional business librarian, and Lindsay's background is actually with marketing. So we're hoping that particular background and strength of hers is going to help us meet the gap on, not having necessarily a place to make referrals to some marketing help. We still, as a library, will probably never be able to meet the gaps in accounting and human resources. So we'll have to still navigate that as a collaborative and not just an organization. But then we also have been trying to meet the need of a physical space in the ecosystem. And a kind of a quick story on that. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the organization Bitwise. It is actually out of San Francisco, and it was a national organization. And I say was because it no longer exists. There was kind of a very public breakdown with that organization, but they were supposed to be coming to Toledo and kind of be a co-working business hub, and many of our partners were looking to have space there. And then one day they're just like, hey, we don't have any more money. And all the Bitwise locations across the country closed unexpectedly with very short notice. And so we, kind of in the background, we're tossing around, well, we have this space when we reopened our main library in 2019 that never really took off for various reasons, one being COVID. And so we thought maybe we could offer this space for the ecosystem to use for some of those organizations that might not have public facing space. I know some of our chambers are pretty small and can't meet clients at a particular location. ECDI doesn't really have office space. So we wanted to say, hey, we already see a gap internally. We're great at meeting with people one-on-one via appointment, but we're missing the mark on being able to help people in the moment because of that. So we would really benefit from having a public space for our small business and nonprofit department, but we also want to be able to offer that to you. So as we heard that Bitwise wasn't necessarily going to be an option for our community, then we decided to definitely pursue this as an option. And so we did some asset mapping to make sure that this was really going to be the best fit, that, making sure that none of our partners were capable of offering something like this before we really invested in it. So we have worked on that, and we've also worked on an online presence as well, and not just the library, but we've been a really substantial partner in creating an online presence of our ecosystem, and that is called the Toll Ramp, TOL Ramp, and that just stands for Toledo. That's our shortened version of Toledo there. And so the Toll Ramp, and I have a slide that has a picture of that, and I'm always happy to explore that resource if anyone wants to see it. But it has these placeholder cards for all of the partners offering free services to the business ecosystem. And so the library decided that this was something that we wanted to make sure was happening. We already pay for databases, so why not really pay for the equivalent of a local database that has all this business information in it? And we have dedicated some staff time to serve on an oversight committee for the Toledo Ramp. And that actually came out of a series of conversations that were facilitated by Forward Cities that happened over time, that one of our staff members was also a part of. And this database really came as, a great way for self-service of customers in the ecosystem to find really the help that they were looking for. So it really reduced some of those barriers that people were facing, that we thought we were doing a good job when someone was entering the ecosystem by working with one of the partner agencies. But if someone wasn't, how would they figure that out? How would they figure out who to go to? So this met that gap, allowing people to enter on their own accord with the right partner rather than having to already work with somebody. And there's going to be some great pieces that are going to continue to come on board with that. So we've got the piece where people can learn about the agencies and learn about which events are coming up within the ecosystem. But some other things that are coming on board soon is a financial piece. So who offers access to capital in an equitable way? So we're not putting all banks on there, but if they have a dedicated program for funding businesses through a lens of EDI, or they're a nonprofit lender or something like that, they're going to be on this tool as well. And then down the road, even further away, there's going to be a contract bid piece so that entrepreneurs can all in one location find what type of bids are out there that they can potentially get, whether that's with the city, the county, or maybe even some private ones. What are all of the contract bids that they can access? And then that space I was talking about, we're calling it the workspace, that's going to come on board in 2024. But the staff here, we're already trying to use the space as much as possible, but we're just waiting mostly on furniture and technology to come into place. So budget money has to be allocated to that. So we look forward to a full launch of that next year, but we're already trying to incorporate that space into our daily routine. And so here's just the tool, the Toledo ramp. There's the link to it, tollramp.biz, if you want to check it out. The very top one that's popping up there, Find an Advisor, that's really the bread and butter of that tool, so that people can self-select, how far along in the process are they? Are they like 0 to 3 months, 3 to 6 months? Have they been around for a while? What kind of help do they want? Is it access to capital? Is it business plans? Is it something else? They can self-select on these filters, and then they'll get all of the recommendations for which organizations can help them with that piece. And if any one of you want to see that, I'm always happy to just pull that up too and show you as well. But that's what we've been working on, and where we are working through some of these issues in our ecosystem. But I've always felt that we kind of had a special ecosystem because it was so formalized. I know a lot of you work with a number of those same partners that we're working with in your own communities, but you may want to look into creating this monthly check-in with everyone, because it's been such a great help for us. But that's really all I had to share on our update. So I'm happy to talk through questions if you want to hear about some of the stories that we've been working on. That is just where we are in the process. We're 4 years in.
Thank you, Zach. That was awesome. There's so much exciting stuff.
Thanks. Yeah, happy to. If there's any piece that you want to talk about, or like I said, I'm happy to show the Toledo ramp if there's further interest with that too.
I'd be interested to see that.
Okay, let me pull that up here.
So this is super interesting because we're literally working on this as Wyoming as a whole, with our partners with SBDC, et cetera, and where we keep hitting a wall is which platform do we use and who's going to pay for it. And that circle we've been circling that for, I think this is my 4th committee I've been on now. And in 7 years, just trying to get this going. So which platform did you use, and what have you found out?
Yeah, so we are using Startup Space, and the reason that the group decided to go forward with that is the way I think it was a lot of the back end piece that allowed someone to easily manage all of this. And originally the library was thinking about being the ones that kind of house this, because it's basically a database, but our partners over at the chamber stepped up and said that we'll be the ones to be the primary partner on this. So they are the administrative support for all the tech pieces of it, and ultimately approve all of the changes that get supplied from all of the various partners here. But yeah, Startup Space, and so far it's been really easy to use as one of the outside partners, where they just give you a login, and then you all update your own card on here and submit your own events as well. And so yeah, I'll show it to you, but it has been very easy to use. But we were lucky that they jumped to the plate, and then we decided to offer some financial support for the tool. I think Kroger is also sponsoring it as a community resource, so there's some outside sponsorship with that as well. Let me share my screen again. And so there's this landing page for tollramp.biz, but what Startup Space really is this tool. The other pieces that will come online will be through Startup Space, the financial piece, and then the contractor piece will also be in there. They just haven't rolled those out yet. But these below are some other tools. So they're not necessarily part of Startup Space. The last one is the event piece is also part of Startup Space. But when you go in to find an advisor, all of the partners, and most of these are BGC, Business Growth Collaborative partners, are listed in here. And the individual who can access this, so we have this on our website so people can access it, but they can look for a specific partner by name, or if they just don't know how to go about this, they can say, you know, I'm interested in business plans and I am pre-launch, and they hit search, and then that will filter through everyone that offers those pieces or areas of expertise. Now, one challenge that we have had, and this sometimes happens within our own ecosystem as well, a lot of people are putting that they do things like business plans on their card, even though that might not be their lane of expertise. So we haven't really had a conversation around that yet. So some of these people that are pulling up, they might help with business plans, but it might not be like their bread and butter, their forte. So the library's pulling in, but let me see if I can find a good example of one that I don't necessarily think should be pulling. Actually, they may have updated. Well, ECDI does not help with business plans. They have a partner organization, the Women's Business Center, that will help them, but ECDI themselves is not going to help with business plans. So that's probably a conversation we still need to have to make sure that this tool is as good as it can be. But until then, it's been working really well, I think, for people trying to self-select resources. And then if I go back here to the events, it's also through Startup Space. And so a lot of these pieces on here are actually library programs. And that's another one that's been an issue with all the turnover in the ecosystem, is people aren't currently submitting a lot of their events on here. But again, I think that will rectify itself with time. But that's what our tool looks like here.
So you mentioned that you were having trouble with marketing, but all of those events that I saw were marketing.
Yeah, so that's the library program. So another piece that we brought on board, we now offer through a third-party presenter. She's doing a series of 8 weeks classes. So we're on, I think, series number 3, and so she does 8 weeks of classes for us.
And do you have to pay her?
Yeah, she is paid. She actually worked with a library out of Kansas, and then she moved to the area, and we just jumped on the chance to hire her.
Okay.
She is really good at what she does, actually.
So I am in Plano, and in Plano, Texas. It's outside of Dallas. We have a lot of programming, and one thing that the library actually does step into the marketing area ourselves. We show people how to use Canva. We use LinkedIn Learning as a resource where they can build marketing kinds of information. We've done a program on how to use Google surveys to gather information from your customers. And we have our SCORE partners come in and talk about SEO and designing your website for. And if you have people that can do HTML or some website design, or even comparing different website host platforms, that kind of thing, those could all be considered kind of in that marketing direction, because especially the startups are not going to be paying somebody for marketing up front. So we try to step into those areas with those basic tools and introducing, also Adobe Suite. We teach a lot of Adobe Suite. So we have like, we do product photography and video editing. Canva is a great tool, and that actually a lot of people tune in for that. But because we also have Adobe Suite available on our public floors, then we, teach some of those skills that they
Is
can.
that librarian led, the Adobe Suite one?
Correct.
Okay,
The
that's
library
actually,
staff.
that's great to hear, because I like Lindsay with joining us, she's in the exact headspace right now of what does it look like to offer marketing programs through the library. So thank you for sharing
Yeah,
that.
yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of things. We've done stuff on branding too. And also we have a wonderful librarian that's very knows everything on LinkedIn. And even just like thinking about LinkedIn as a way to market your business and the business page. So giving some direction there.
Yeah, have you ever done anything with websites? We hear that question a lot, like how do I start my website?
Yeah, we had a librarian who's left us now who was doing some basic coding for websites, but I haven't seen us do yet, which I would like to see, is like a comparison of different tools on different hosting websites out there. And really just talking through the kind of information that people would be looking for on your website. But we have done online sales. I know Carly, who's normally here at Baltimore, I think they have done stuff on like using Etsy. So there's a lot of different, elements that I think library staff can do. Creating a logo. I'm trying to think of the other ones that we've done, but I don't think we've done specifically building a website, but I think that's something that we should have the capacity to do. It just depends on, who's on staff, who's
Yeah.
available right now.
Yeah, Lindsay and I had a brief disaster story a week or so ago where we were helping someone and we knew that they had built their free site on Google Sites and it was great. And I was like, oh, well, you can actually just buy your domain through Google. And then we learned that you can no longer do that. It has to be purchased. They sold the Google domains to Squarespace. So then we felt responsible for that. And we tried to connect their Squarespace domain to their Google site. And we did figure it out, but it was like a 3-day disaster. But we now know how to do that.
I have a question about the referrals. So you said at one point that you don't put patron information into the referral page or something. I can't, but then how do you refer people if you don't put their information in the referral system?
That's a good question. So we just do warm handoffs via email usually.
Okay.
So we have I guess in that case we are technically sharing their email address, but they've given it to us. So
Right.
We originally, when we first started the BGC, the library was putting some customer information in there, but we were also originally getting a grant. So we felt like we were required to do that as part of that, but then we stopped applying for the funds and it didn't make sense, and so we said we were no longer going to put customer data into the CRM.
So do you do any kind of follow-up to say, did you talk to Fred about his startup? How does that work?
Yeah, so at the monthly meeting, so it breaks out into 2 portions. I don't remember if it's about an hour and a half. The first portion of our monthly meeting is just updating each other on things in the ecosystem. And the second half of the meeting is called the deal flow. And so anyone that's been referred is just, you take a moment to say, hey, this was so-and-so. And sometimes it's actually preemptive. You might have someone who says, I actually don't know who to refer this to, who in the ecosystem can help. But other times it's, a checkup saying I referred this person over to the Women of Toledo. Is there an update? Did they actually reach out to you?
Okay, thanks.
Do you know what CRM tool they're using?
Salesforce, and it's been a little tricky for everyone across the board to learn, but they have offered, since Jumpstart is the convening organization, they have people who've led a training on it for all of us.
Okay, and I noticed Alexandria's question about nonprofits, and I would just love to hear how anyone else addresses this. I feel like it's not just the nonprofit issue. I feel like it's a common thing among both startup businesses and nonprofits. They just think that there's this big pile of grants waiting for them to just say, I have a great idea. And it just is not the case in either area. Nonprofits cannot get, and I know this because I come from this background, that's where I did a lot of my work. You can't just get a grant for a nonprofit when you're just starting out. They need to be developing their own donor base and getting their programs underway before they're going to be able to get grants. So, but how do y'all handle that? Both on both sides, the nonprofit and the business? I'm sure that people ask y'all like they do us. Where are the grants? So we want the grants.
So the nonprofit piece, nonprofits do get referred between some of these organizations, but some of the partners just absolutely do not work with nonprofits. Like I know the SBDC does not here locally. We do. So we at the library, we work with them to we do absolutely do not give them any legal advice, but if they want to start up a nonprofit, we'll show them, you know, what those steps look like and what are the requirements to creating a board and your bylaws. We do have a partner who is not a member of the ecosystem. It's the Center for Nonprofit Resources, but they also usually only help organizations who are established. So a lot of the startup nonprofits come to the library. They don't know how to navigate the startup process, and so we'll work with them. And then a lot of times the conversation around grants, if they're trying to start a nonprofit, we work with them on the education piece to know that, you know, you're not going to be a candidate for probably your first 1 to 3 years. You need to really bootstrap and have some success and something to point to be a worthy candidate. And we teach grant writing classes on that as well. But on the business side, what we try to do is just redirect the conversation. Yeah, we get a lot of business questions and a lot of business grant referrals, which is the frustrating piece. We keep trying to work on that, and it doesn't seem to be actually going away with our partners, because I don't think they want to answer the question either. But we'll do a redirect where we say, okay, you know, there are some business grants out there. They will probably not fund the startup process. And they're mostly a marketing piece for the business or the entity offering the grant, like a FedEx small business grant. So it's really story-based. So we'll say to them that what you're most likely going to do is something more traditional like equity or debt, so an investor or a loan. And I often actually just share a chapter from a NOLO guide on raising money for a business that we download from Small Business Reference Center, and say, you'll notice that there's almost no information on grants in this. So we might say, it's what you might want to do then is focus on a business plan, because any funding opportunity is going to require you to have a business plan. Even if it is a grant, they might want you to have a business plan. So we'll work on that with them, and then usually refer them to ECDI or one of our other non-traditional lending options, just in case there's credit issues or they've already hit a wall where there's a no. So I think that's been our best version of that conversation, is redirecting them from the idea of grant to a more viable option.
I guess I can talk a little bit also about, like, we get a lot of this as well at our organization. We, through our community foundation, we have Foundation Directory Online and Grant Watch. And Grant Watch is great because it's super low cost, and you can also do small businesses and individuals, and we have FDO for individuals. Like Zach was talking about, like, I'm running a class at the beginning of November on how to do a fall appeal letter, and why that's often a very important part of funding. Individual gifts for nonprofits make up a large portion. We are lucky enough to have a small business grant through the Community Foundation called the New Haven Equal Equity Entrepreneurial Grant, NHE3. That's been super helpful, but you have to be in business for a year to qualify. One of the other things, I don't know if you guys have in your communities, but we have a few accelerators. So, for example, we have an organization called Collab, and they do 12-week accelerators, and they have a program called Groundwork, which is for people who are not really ready to be in an accelerator yet. And so, like, tonight we're hosting them for a program that's their women's initiative, and it's just like people from the current cohort of accelerators and coming, talking, and then people from the community come, like myself and other resources, talk to them about how they can, work with at their touch points and what they're struggling with. Yeah, so, like, I think, like, and also we have like a community economic development fund, but usually you have to be in business, but they'll do lines of credit also, and that's a nonprofit organization, so it works a little bit better. So, I mean, accelerators have been very helpful in our community, at least.
Yeah, Jumpstart also does a program for for-profit businesses for a pitching competition, where if they get in to it, they get 8 weeks of classes, but they automatically get $2,500 and they're pitching for 10,000. And that's also been a great way to talk about pitching competitions and some other free money, and essentially. I'm going to drop this link here that I use sometimes for this chart from Candid. How do I get a grant? What I really like about it is it links to a bunch of knowledge articles. And so I see some nodding heads there, so some of you are familiar with it. But it does also address for-profit businesses, individuals, students. So, you know, it can guide a conversation sometimes, which is handy. Any other questions?
So for the startup space, does it grow? Has it been easy to grow as you guys have kind of changed and I guess I don't know what I'm trying to say. Are you able to future-proof it so that as those people change all the time within other organizations, that you're able to get some kind of continuity?
Yeah, because the chamber is holding that piece and they're the administrators of the tool, they always have someone on staff to kind of be that point person. And those individual entries, we call them cards. And so if somebody, you know, is new to an organization and they need to update their card, or they're trying to submit events, that person from the chamber is then able to reach out, get them an account set up and the training that they need. So by having that organization, you know, own that piece, I think it helps it, you know, maintain itself. And we haven't had really any issues with organizations putting their information in there. So as soon as we launched the first part of this tool, everyone was pretty receptive to getting their information on there.
I have many more questions, so I'm going to be really quiet and let someone else ask.
Always happy to talk after this too.
That'd be great.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Zach, and thanks everyone for the really good discussion today. I dropped a quick exit ticket in the chat if you don't mind taking a minute to fill that out. Just let us know what you thought of today and what kinds of future discussion topics you're interested in, or if you're interested in being a featured speaker or presenter at a future meeting. I'd love to host you or to have you. So please let me know. Next month, I think we're going to have Shamichael Hallman from the Urban Libraries Council talk about his work in small business development in the Memphis Public Library. So stay tuned for that meeting invite. We record these meetings, so the meeting from today will be up on our YouTube page probably tomorrow. And I'll send out the link as well. Here's the YouTube page. Zach, any final thoughts or anything you want to leave us with?
No, thanks for having me. I do think that having a formal ecosystem like we have here has been really beneficial, and I think there are ways to scale it. So if anyone has any follow-up questions, I'm always happy to talk about it.
Thank you again so much. It looks like Zach's put his contact info in the chat. Yeah, people can follow up. Anything else from anyone today? Okay, bye everyone. Thanks so much for coming. I'll leave the line open if anyone wants to chat.